I'm Rob Sarney, and you're listening to What the Heck Fintech, where you'll experience and learn that fintech is Fin Life. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. We have a great episode for you today. We have Jagathi Gururajan with us, the founder of Fintech Women. She does so much in fintech. She's so connected. We got to do a great event together at Hout University, chapter of Fintech Women at Hout University in Cambridge. And we're having a lot of fun together. So one of my great, fantastic fintech friends is Jagathi. So Jagathi, how did we all have different backgrounds. We came from different directions. We're all in fintech, in my opinion. Everyone's in fintech, whether they realize it or not. But how did you get into this fintech space, and how did this all transition?
That's such a great question. But first, I should thank you, Rob, for having me. What you're doing is so much fun. It's fun, but also I think necessary conversations from people that are having a point of view. So I can't wait to hear the other sessions that you have. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I like that question because, the origin story is always interesting. And looking back, I learn every time I tell the origin story. So for me, I have been working in financial services in kind of a slightly different perspective for many years. So I've been working with technology vendors, global technology vendors that mostly sold risk and regulatory technologies to the market. And the highly regulated industry, of course, is financial services with healthcare right behind. So I'd say about 80% of my career has been in taking these risk and regulatory solutions, which are a combination of audit, risk management, regulatory and compliance management, to financial services. And that's been so interesting for me because I had a chance to experience, because we were technology vendors, look behind, even though technology or any software is a resource for a financial services firm, look behind the curtain for a bit and see what's happening with technology. And it's fascinating. I mean, at this time, this is old story, but since I got to watch it as it was happening, we know that financial services firms have 4 or 5 decades of hardware and software behind them. And how do they keep modernizing? How do they keep taking in something new? What does it mean from an infrastructure standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a customer experience standpoint? I got to see all of that. So that was already fascinating for me because somewhere at the back of my head, this is all about the movement of money, which is what financial services, but we forget that. Especially if you live and breathe in the industry, we forget that fundamentally it's the movement of money because we're doing it every single day and get into the operations of it, right? So I was doing all of that, and I had a little bit of a break after I exited Thomson Reuters, where I was leading the global delivery of these solutions, and then figuring out what my next gig is going to be. And at that time, I got introduced to a number of, it was also the time, 2018, 2019, when fintech, as we know now, was coming of age, so to speak, or coming, not of age, but coming into the market for the first time. So there's a lot of buzz around that. And I was trying to get a panel put together. One thing led to the other. And we had a group of about 15 or 18 women meet up for dinner. And what was interesting in that conversation is it was a combination of women in what we call today pure financial services, no technology, so to speak, not heavily in technology. Some of them were in technology, not so much in fintech as mainstream technology. And then there was a group of women who were a combination of leaders, early entrepreneurs in fintech and such. And that conversation led to a couple of things. And the most dominant memory I have is one of the early entrepreneur CEO coming up and saying, it's the first time in a long time she was able to have very open conversations about what's happening professionally. And that clearly identified a gap. I was already personally involved with other diversity conversations and organizations, so it kind of felt natural. But our early days for FinTech Women was really, hey, let's get together and see what's going on, or where can this go? And we have been fortunate in many ways to really come where we are today. And I'm sure I'll talk about that. But much of this, many of the activities that we have had, many of the twists and turns we have had, has been organic for us. So so looking back, yes, there's a whole bunch of wow, how did that happen? And then coming to a realization that, well, clearly there was a market need, and that's why it happened.
Wow. And I mean, that is great. I mean, I could definitely see how, um, why FinTech Women came to be, because it's so needed. And that support model you put into place, and I saw it firsthand at the health events. And I saw those super smart, young FinTech women, most of them were MBA, they're getting their MBA and graduating, really soon. I think in August.
Yeah.
I think they've probably already graduated now, and they just looked up to you, and I could see they had stars in their eyes, and what you've been doing with them, for them, coaching them, mentoring them. I mean, it's amazing, and I'd love to hear how a story or two that you have that you've experienced with these, young FinTech women. But you mentor women of all ages, right? So it doesn't really matter. But I saw that firsthand. That's why the only reason I'm talking about that one. And
Yes.
I'd love to hear your take on that, and how is that going?
Absolutely. So, by the way, that was a great event, and who better a partner than you? We had this back and forth going, and yeah, I think our moderator was doing very well keeping up with our conversation in the middle. That was really good. But it is also, I think it's the most recent chapter that we have had a student chapter with Suffolk. Um, you're right in saying that FinTech Women goes across the age groups, right? So we have four cohorts that we focus on: the college graduates, recent college graduates, and early career women, mid career women, executive entrepreneurs, and board ready women. And then we have allies and influencers, so that we can really create this ecosystem. And we say this word, this phrase we use is inspire each other in the community, because that's where the magic happens. And so many anecdotes come to mind, but let me start with this. One of our mentors, friends, partners for the longest time was interviewed, and she referred to what FinTech Women is doing as saying, not transactional, but a group of women who support each other without the sense of, that we'll get something back. She said it more eloquently, but I'm paraphrasing. But for me, what struck was, I have known her for a while. The non-transactional part of it was kind of came home to me, because that's what we want. We want to inspire a community. We want the community go out and do cool things. It is not a give and take so much as, when there's opportunity, I'm sure you'll give back. And when there's opportunity, if the opportunity is with us right now, we'll give. And the mentoring that you mentioned is really falls into that, because it's one of the programs we started more recently. We call it growth circles, and the idea of group networking, 2 mentors to 3 mentees. So that's a formal aspect of mentoring. What is interesting, we did the first cohort of that January to June, and coming out of it, this is an anecdote worth mentioning, right? Definitely in relation to what is interesting in that is, amongst our professional mentors, the 2 mentors who are coaching and mentoring 3 mentees, one of them said those conversations over a period of 6 months actually helped them as they were negotiating something professionally. We use these terms of reverse mentoring, going back and forth, but that kind of reminded us at Fintech Women that sometimes just the conversation goes, which makes certain aspects of how we live, do business come top of mind. So that's one. And the second one, I'd probably say, maybe we talk about HALT. What is interesting is when we started engaging with HALT, it came together rather quickly. Earlier in March, we had an event at Suffolk University. There's careers in fintech for graduating students. That was kind of the broad theme. We had some professionals come in from the industry, and we had this conversation. And a young and one of the students from HALT was part of that event. And the first question that came up was, why do we not have this in HALT? And she went on and launched in a matter of months the HALT chapter over at HALT University. So yes, of course, we helped them along the way. But what's really fascinating is the students. We think of them as students, but some of these students come with several years of industry experience. And they're at this kind of pivotal point in their career where they say, I have stepped out of work very consciously to get into this next phase of my career. And if I'm getting into this next phase of my career, what should I be doing? They're doing a lot of thinking. They're doing, their professional growth, their personal growth, a number of other things. And through that, when they engage with somebody like Fintech Women, it feels to them all aspects of their life is being supported. And one of the students mentioned this to me. And again, that it's very heartening to hear that, because at Fintech Women, we believe we should meet the woman where she is. And that kind of, it kind of, again, it was a full circle back to saying, oh yeah, we're doing what we hope to do. And hopefully they take that as their backbone support to then do a whole bunch of new, greater things as they go back into industry.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, and after that event, I had 4 students, men and women, reach out to me after that event, and I've talked to them and did a little coaching and trying to help them get connected. So they hustle over there.
Yeah.
They really do. I love it.
I love what you said. And 2 things. One, I'm glad that they reached out, because that's part of this, right? It's networking. Like, you're building your own community. You have to grow. You have to figure this out. But you also said men and women. And for us at Fintech Women, that is so critical. Right from the start, we have said, look, this is not an exclusive of men community or organization. It is absolutely the inclusive of men. In fact, more recently and more consciously, because we have had many men come and say, hey, I'm a man, can I come in? And our response is, of course, yes. But how can we make that natively kind of like, yes, of course, you're welcome. You don't have to ask. We are consciously changing our words, our phrases to say professionals instead of women, because the power of words. I mean, we use the word inspire exactly for that same reason, but the power of words, we use the word professional so that everybody knows that they're welcome. Because the more it's a diverse community, the more change we can bring.
Right. Wow. So I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna hopefully you can answer it. We'll see. That's what we're talking about mentoring right now.
Yeah.
Do you have a mentor in your life that you had growing up? That could be a professional woman. That could be your mother, your grandmother. Like what? Because your modeling approach is awesome, and how you're framing things is awesome. My guess is you learned that from one of your own mentors and how you, as a mentee, got coached and mentored.
Yeah.
Do you have one in mind that you could share? And if you don't, I fully understand.
Yeah, no, I can. This is interesting for me. By the way, I grew up in India. So, and I grew up in a household where we had very strong matriarchs. So it was not that they were, in quotes, women-led households, so to speak, right? When I think of my grandmother and my mother went out to work. My grandmother was a stay-at-home, as anybody else of her generation, and we had, of course, other women in the family. But they held sway. They were not women to step back and say, like, look, I'm a woman, I can't do. And I think when I look back, that the men in the family, I was fortunate, took this to be normal. It wasn't a power struggle in any of the households that I remember growing up in, that, oh, women should stay in the kitchen and men do manly things going out. So it wasn't that. So I think, without realizing, I had the privilege of growing up with role models that helped me appreciate that, look, there's nothing you can't do. So there was that kind of subtle thing growing up. And then when I think about professionally, I think my early career was searching for mentors. I mean, this was before mentoring was even something we spoke about. So it was like, I can't. There have been leaders and peers who have supported me, but I don't know that we had a conscious mentor-mentee relationship as such, right? At that time, my early career for sure. And a lot of my career has been international as well. So if I fast forward though, and look back in the last maybe 10, 12, 15 years, what's been interesting, and much of that career has been in the US, and it's so often that you hear in the press, you hear in conversations, private and public, the demonizing, and I'll say this tongue in cheek because you fall in that category, the demonizing of the middle-aged white man. It's like, oh, well, this is why it happened, right? But when I have individual conversations with women, and I have experienced this myself, I would say in recent career, most of my mentors have been exactly that. And I've been so fortunate to work with folks that are open-minded, have given me the space to grow, given me the space to make mistakes and had my back when I did this. And not solely Caucasian white American men, right? Also, people from other ethnicities who have been my manager have given me the space to make mistakes and had my back. So I think over the time, I have learned from so many of them. But I can, there are certain times when I do something, I can trace the legacy of some behaviors to certain managers or certain peers and say, oh, they told me how, so the first time I saw this done was when this person did that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to how you grew up in the household. Like the great story you just told. I mean, I grew up in my house. My mother was a very strong woman. I saw that growing up. That's what I expected. My father was a state police officer, and my mother was a lot tougher than he was. Right. Yeah. So I mean, and she ran the house. She did all the finances. I mean, she went to Harvard. I didn't, right? And she like, what do you want to? Like when we were picking a college, what major I wanted to do. I go, I don't know. I want to play basketball. I don't know what I want to do. She goes, be an accountant. They'll always need accountants. So I did, and that gave me the numbers sense, right? Yeah. And she was a school psychologist at the Havel school system. So she was, she was a go-getter, right? Yeah. And then my wife. Same thing. My wife is the smartest person I know, and and she was valedictorian the year ahead of me at Swampscott High. She went to Tufts. She was Phi Beta Kappa, and she went to Harvard for her grad school. And I did nothing of that. I wanted to play basketball. Right. So I learned. Right. I always say I brought her down, my wife. I brought her down, and she brought me up. So we met in the middle, right? And which I think
I question that, Rob, and I can't wait to meet your wife sometime. But
no. Wait do you see? Well, yeah. The joke is, I steal her jokes because she's super funny, but she doesn't like to say them in public. So she'll sell something to me, and then I'll leverage it. So she's amazing, right? We'll put that off to the side. But it depends on how you grew up. Like I grew up with that. I expect that, right? Yeah. And and as I grew up in industry, the women leaders that I had, my women managers were my best managers, right? I had great men managers too, don't get me wrong. But the women ones that really, I thought I connected better with them, and this got me. I think they got me quicker and got me more excited to really hustle. So I think it depends. I don't know. It's the fundamentals, how you grew up, and everyone grows up differently in different parts of the world and different mentalities. But I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. All these different cultures, some are pro women and some aren't. But it really comes down to the household. I think. I don't think it's an individual anything. It's how that household was. I think. Right. That's my take.
I agree. I think so much of. I mean, I know I'm not a psychologist, so I can't really talk about that. But when you think about, I do when I meet people, I like to ask where they grew up or how they grew up, and a little bit get to know them personally before talking professionally. And I think there's a lot to learn from people when you hear who they are as humans and what made them who they are today. And that tells a whole lot. I think there's something to that. And maybe we should talk to your mom to find out what that is about.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my mom's passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's okay. But my wife and I and my family, we quote her all the time. Like she was a character too. She was a character, and she had all these things. But we'll put that off to the side. Please come back to part 2 with Jagathi, as Jagathi gets deeper into technology and explains and frames what AI is really all about. Plus, you'll hear about all the great events that Fintech Women will be doing in the fall. Thank you for listening to What the Heck, Fintech. Make sure you tune into our next episode as we continue to interview fintech leaders and share real-world stories from across the fintech ecosystem, so you can fully understand that fintech is fin life.